Good evening, everybody. This is Thursday night because it's Born Political here live. Hopefully you're watching live. If you watch it later on recorded, it's still all the same information you'll be able to find out about my guest. I'm really excited tonight because this is a guest that I've actually worked with before and I know her. But now she has something new that she's working on. I'm going to do it early. It's a book. It's called Happy Hour. My friend Elissa Bass wrote it. I have not read it yet. I can't critique it. But she's going to critique me because she knows how to do some interviewing on her own. Without further ado, I want to introduce my guest, Elissa. Thank you for being on the show.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited to have you. And Born Political, I think we talked off air. It's a show where I'm really trying to get to know people, who they are. And we do have a lot to talk about, but I want to know, who is Elissa Bass? And I start out with Born Political. Where were you born? Are you a Connecticut girl or where are you from?
Oh, no. I was born in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, which is western Massachusetts. It's in the Berkshires.
Okay.
Yep.
I thought you were a homer too this whole time.
No, I came to Connecticut in 1987 when I got my job at the Day newspaper as a reporter.
Wow, the Day reporter. That's when papers were really intense.
Yes, and back then it was an afternoon paper.
I remember I used to deliver the newspaper.
Yeah. So, yeah. Yep.
Wow.
That's when I came
So
home.
you grew up in Pittsfield?
Yep.
School,
Well, I grew up in
everything.
the little, very small town next to Pittsfield, but I went to public school in Pittsfield.
Public school in Pittsfield.
Yep.
And then you have brothers and sisters?
I have an older brother and a younger sister.
Oh, so me and you are the same. I'm the middle.
I'm a textbook middle child Gemini. Like, I am all the stereotypes.
I'm textbook middle child Pisces then.
Okay.
But we do share a lot of the same. You're the peacekeeper. I think being the middle child, for me at least, I think it turned me into the politician that I am a little bit.
Oh.
Because my brother was the strong hand trying to always, and he would always like mess with my little sister for whatever reason. Huge age gap, but he liked to get the best of me and her. So, but I was always trying to mediate, and I think that's what drove my career to where I was, or me doing what I did.
That makes sense,
Yeah.
Because you are a talker and also a bringer together of people.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
It does. So, all public school, you went?
Yes,
through
and then
that?
I went to college. I went to Bates College in Lewiston, Maine.
Lewiston.
Got a degree in English.
And did you
literature.
want to be a reporter? Because was that your first job then, the Day reporter, or would you?
Oh, no. I mean, all through high school, both my parents worked at the Berkshire Eagle, which is the newspaper there. That's where they met. They met in the newsroom.
Reporters?
Yes. Well, at the time, my mother, who in 1958 was the first female police reporter in the state of Massachusetts.
Wow.
If you can imagine being a woman, a 25-year-old woman covering the cops in 1958, there she was. Cops
Isn't that
and courts.
amazing though? A reporter that just covered just the police section, where I mean that's one section, or just that was.
Well, covering the crime is a full-time job.
Yeah.
Whatever decade you're in.
Yeah.
My dad was the arts editor, I think, at the time. So they met in the newsroom. They got married. So I grew up in a newsroom. Like literally, I would be there and I'd be playing under somebody's desk. I knew all the reporters. I knew all the editors. We kind of had the run of the place. I didn't think I was going to go into journalism until I got out of college, and I really didn't know what I wanted to do, and it seemed like an easy fallback.
Yeah.
So I applied for some reporting jobs. My first job was in Dover, New Hampshire, at a tiny little newspaper called Foster's Daily Democrat, and then I came to the Day in 1987, and I was at the Day for 23 years.
And it actually explains a lot. I know you, but your Facebook posts, I see what you say and certain things, and I think if you were raised around in a house where they dealt with news, it was probably a lot of robust conversations about
Oh my gosh,
the news.
yes, absolutely. And and they were writers as well. In addition to being journalists, they both wrote books. My dad published 15 novels.
Wow.
My mother just published her 5th novel, and she also wrote cookbooks back in the day. So we were a very word family. There was just a lot of talking and writing and reading all the time.
And then how about politically? Were you guys, was it, because to me, I laugh. My mother's pretty liberal Democrat. My parents are divorced, and to this day, I still don't even know what my father is, Republican or Democrat. He doesn't say 2 words. He doesn't want to talk about it. He just, I think he does his thing. He always votes, but he's very, very private with what he does.
So my parents were both I don't know if they were actually registered Democrats, because a lot of journalists don't register in a political party because you don't want to show any, demonstrate any outward bias.
Yeah.
Like my whole journalist career, I was an unaffiliated voter.
Yeah.
But they were very progressive, very liberal. Massachusetts, right?
Yeah.
It's a D state.
It is.
Even if they accidentally had Mitt Romney as governor for a little while.
And still managed to get Romney Care through, though.
Well, right. But so if you look at the Republican governors that Massachusetts has had, Charlie Baker,
Yeah.
Republican, great governor.
Yep.
Mitt Romney, Romney Care, right?
Yeah.
So I have no argument with the Republican governors of Massachusetts in modern history. But so my parents were definitely liberal, definitely progressive, and actually, so during the whole sort of Trump administration, my mom would watch everything that was going on the news, and she would say to me, I cannot believe where we are based on where we used to be.
Yeah.
As somebody who lived through all of
That has a measuring stick.
all of the gathering of women's rights,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
like her, for a long period of her adult life, she couldn't have a credit card, she couldn't have gotten a mortgage, she couldn't have gotten a car loan, right?
Yep.
For her to look back at everything that had been accomplished, living through it, and then seeing what was happening now, she gets really sad. It's sad to think about. And I think the later generations don't really understand that because they didn't have to make that fight, right? And so therefore I think they're like, oh yeah, things are bad.
And when I watch it, I was involved with politics a lot because I am a union worker, and a lot of it was worker rights, and you always know there's a pendulum with that workers go so far, they get so many things, and then also starts to go back. You kind of forget. I don't think anyone thought that would happen with women's rights or civil rights, or I think you feel like when you get somewhere and plant the flag that it's over. But our government is living and breathing, and we can change the rules, and we've seen that happen.
Right, and we're very specific with its women's rights, its trans rights, its gay rights, it's human rights,
Exactly.
right? Like, stop labeling these things. We have pulled so many rights away from so many humans in our country in the last 5 years, 8 years, however long it's been. It's kind of hard to remember.
I say 30 years.
I mean, but I mean, it got really critical. It got really
did.
critical
In the last, no doubt.
in 2016. It got
did.
very critical.
Yeah.
And it's hard to sort of fathom, and it's going to take 50 or 60 or 70 years to fix it.
It will.
We're not.
I think that's what the
We're
frustration
not turning
is.
right around, right? I mean,
we're a cruise ship.
We are the Titanic. I mean,
we could be the Titanic.
The iceberg's over there, but
yeah.
you can't pivot. Like
You can't.
right? It's not easily fixable. It's fixable, but it's not quickly fixable, and it's not easily fixable. And I don't think people understand that.
And I think young people in particular don't, because when I talk to them, being an older Democrat, also I'm an old man at 53, and they say, well, Joe, you're saying these things, and when I talk to them about policy and changing things, I talk in the methodic way that government moves, and that it is slow, and that it is hard, and I can understand when now they're looking. When I say that I witnessed what happened to workers over the last 30 years, every single person I work with will look at me that's younger and say, I wish I had what you had, Joe. But I remember saying the same thing to the people that were before me. We watched all these workers' rights erode and just go away and leave. Like, we used to get overtime after 7 hours in my union. That was a thing. Sheet Metal Workers Union. We had no co-pays. We had everything was easier than what it is today. And when you explain it to a young person, I saw someone post something, well, no one wants a job. We posted up this, corrections officer job in Connecticut. I said, if you could take the benefits from 1985 and post it, you'd have 100,000 people applying for it.
Right.
It's just the amount of benefits that are gone, that they're not connected anymore to that job.
Right.
And we want to blame these young kids. And I do have a little bit of hope for quick change when it comes to rights like that, because I really think these kids have had it. They really, really, truly have had it, and they are a huge voting bloc, and they're coming up. We won't be around to, I guess, stop them, but or not stop. Not that you'd want to, but I think they're going to start demanding it.
Well, I agree with that. I have a 26-year-old and a 23-year-old, and I have tremendous faith and hope in their generation the things that they believe, the things that they talk about, the things that they're passionate about, I think are the salvation of this country.
Yep.
But state by state, the damage that has been done,
Yeah.
we were talking before we started about what goes on down south with voting rights and all of that stuff, right? So nationally we can fix some stuff. Listen, the Republicans played a long game, right?
They always have.
They played a 45-year long game.
Exactly.
And they very methodically stacked the courts, and they very methodically took care of all the things that everybody thought was boring and nobody paid attention to.
Yep.
And here we are.
Here we are.
Right? So I do think that the next generation is critically important. I do think they're mobilized. I do think they're passionate. But I also think it's going to take a long time to fix.
Yeah, I think the point that these young kids are, that I see is the dog caught the bus. Now what? We always say that, right? Dog caught the bus. Now what? They got everyone in court that they wanted. They passed a unbelievably unpopular or overturned Roe v. Wade, unpopular as could possibly be. They're talking about school vouchers. They're talking about things that are once it actually hits the ground, these policies, and I don't tell people to. I think as someone that's angry as a Democrat, you say, well, let it happen to them, right? They're the ones that voted for it. Let them see how bad it is. I don't think we can afford to do that. We can't skip a generation on how we care for people, or
No,
how we love
absolutely
people.
not. Right.
And I think hopefully what we're seeing is all these races that we thought were going to be inevitably Republican, and they're not going that way because the dog caught the bus.
Right.
The policy is passed. It's in place. You have to leave the state of Texas if you want abortion care.
Right. Right.
And we've seen even where a woman was really trying to preserve her body
Yeah.
to be able to have a baby later.
Oh yeah.
Because it was and she had to leave her state.
There's hundreds and hundreds of those stories across those states, all across
Yeah.
those states. I don't want to lose track of our time here,
We're not gonna
which
lose
I know
track.
you're famous for.
I am famous
because
for
I
that.
do want to talk about early voting.
How's my interview going so far? All
You're
right?
okay.
I'm going a little off track.
You wander a little bit,
I do.
but it's okay.
I do.
It's part of your charm,
It-
so
yeah.
it's fine.
So anyway, what I won't forget is you said you wanted to talk about early voting. Since we're talking about voting, we can slip that in right now.
Yes, let's do that.
Let's talk about early voting.
So, for clarity, I am the Democratic Registrar of Voters in the town of Stonington, which
Yep.
is why I'm interested in early voting as much as I am.
Thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you. I'm not running again because the job is a terrible job.
Horrible job. Everyone knows it's a horrible job.
I wish I had known what I was getting into. I didn't. Now I do, and I'm getting out. But anyway, I'm in it until January. Connecticut has early voting for the first time this year.
Yeah.
Connecticut is so late to the early voting party that it's embarrassing, but here we are.
Way behind South Carolina.
We're doing it. Early voting for the November 5th election starts October 21st.
Okay.
There is 14 days of voting before November 5th, October 21st to November 3rd. It's 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day except for the last Tuesday and Thursday. It's 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. So there is a massive amount of time for people to vote. This is in every single town in Connecticut.
Yep.
People should take advantage of it. Lots of people like to get the absentee ballots now that there's no excuse absentee in Connecticut. Don't do it. Go early vote.
Yep.
Actually go into wherever your early voting location is where you live, get your ballot, fill it out. You voted. It's done.
Yep.
It's going to take the stress off of voting officials, election officials on November 5th, which is going to be a very stressful day because
Yep.
this is a very
Always is.
important race, top of the ballot all the way down. And the more early votes that we can encourage people to cast, the faster and more efficiently we will have the results on November 5th. And it'll also, I mean, I don't know if you remember 2020, I worked the election 2020, and polls open at 6 a.m., and at 5:15 a.m. we had a line in Stonington in the 1st District from the Borough Firehouse all the way up the hill, all the way past the library, and all the way down the street. There was probably 100 people in line at 5:15 in the morning 45 minutes before the polls opened.
Which is why I voted for early voting when I was in the legislature. Being one of the people that were in green up there makes me proud. There were a lot of us on the left side of the board, obviously, and a lot of folks voted against it.
Right.
Because, and again, I really don't understand why we don't just make it completely easy. And some of the other arguments were, well, if you really want to vote in this country, why would you have to make it too easy? That was the argument.
Oh my gosh.
Because if you really want to vote, and my point was, especially we live and work in an area that is heavy in military, heavy in entertainment. We have when you think of a firefighter even that will do a 24-hour shift, that sometimes is from Brantford and works in Groton. We should make it as convenient as humanly possible.
Absolutely.
It should be easy.
Absolutely.
I didn't even think about voting early till you just said it, because I'm like, I like voting that day, but you know what?
Go vote early.
Let me take some pressure off of our poll workers, and I'm going to go do that.
Yes, go vote early. Everybody, if you can, it's great. Like, why not?
Yeah.
And the 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. on election day, if you get in line at 5:15 and there's 100 people ahead of you and you have to be to work at 6:30,
You're not voting.
you're going to bail from that line,
Yeah.
right? So take that uncertainty out of the equation. You have 14 days.
Yeah.
You have hours and hours and hours.
There was a sign early voting up in Groton already. Was there another? Was there?
So
one?
there was the August primary.
Oh, that's
Was
right.
it for the
So
August
that
primary?
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Must have
So
Yeah.
there were 7 days of early voting for the August primary,
Yeah.
which I think every registrar in Connecticut would tell you was too much.
That was one of the arguments that something could change. The other people said, well, what if you voted 14 days early and all of a sudden your candidate did something that you didn't want? And I'm like, okay, that's probably not going to happen. But people have made up their mind, right, within 14 days. But
Right.
to me, it was not be a worry, because I'm voting for Kamala Harris. It doesn't matter. I know
Right.
who I'm
I
voting
mean,
for.
I
That was
get-
one of the arguments on the House floor,
Okay,
though.
that seems a little flimsy to me. I mean, you could cast an absentee ballot because absentee ballots become available October 4th.
Yeah.
So you could cast your absentee ballot and
Yeah.
then something could change, I guess.
But if you thought your candidate, if you weren't that worried, if you thought your candidate was that unstable or something, then you just
Yeah,
would wait
I mean,
for
I
the
don't
day
know.
to vote.
Like-
I'm not worried about my
Like,
candidates.
we could think about every extreme
You could.
instance that there is as a reason to
But
not do
yeah.
something. But
Overall, though, there's more people that miss voting because it was a singular day.
oh, absolutely.
Right? So this is
absolutely.
definitely
having a single election day is really, in a lot of ways, discriminatory against a lot of people.
Absolutely.
And mostly like working people, right?
Absolutely.
Because their schedules don't align, or it slipped their mind because they're so busy. They have 2 jobs, 3 jobs, right? So having 14 days of 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and 8 to 8 is just, it's like an almost unlimited opportunity to be able to cast your ballot, to be able to participate in the democracy. And it's so critical.
And public transportation people, I think of. If you're on a bus line that's going to your job, to go to where you need to vote, that could be an hour and 50-minute ride.
Right?
Depending on the loop.
Right.
So that's what's important for me. And I got to like share that in Hartford when I was up there, because I think a lot of people, if you're far away from that sector of the economy, that you don't think about those things.
Right.
And really people should, but you can't ask everyone to think of everything. That's why it's important for people to advocate for themselves, to ask for those things, and
Right.
then actually use them when they do come up. Because the higher the number with early voting, the more proof in the pudding that people needed it.
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely.
So I'm glad we talked about that. I'm not going to talk about that anymore because we have 10 minutes left.
Okay.
And we have a book to talk about.
We do.
From my favorite author, who I haven't read any of her work yet.
This
But-
is
but
my only novel.
I'm sure I read your pieces when you were writing at the day.
Oh, I'm sure
Of
you
course.
did.
Yeah.
I've
Very
been,
famous.
I left the day in 2010, and I still have people come up to me and say, "Oh," they say to, "I miss your writing in the day," which I'm like, "That's sweet," but it's
Yeah.
been 14 years, so move on.
Move on.
But also they say to me, "Oh, you wrote a story about me,"
Yeah.
and I'm like,
You wrote a lot of stories.
Okay.
Probably, a lot of people.
I mean, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people I wrote stories about. Some of them I remember, some of them I don't. But it's very cool to still have people like.
And what a generation,
say
though.
that to me.
I think that was, I don't want, obviously the height of newspapers was probably even before the 2010 time, but to me, I delivered newspapers in 4th grade, and I had 120 newspapers. Everyone's like, "Oh my God, how long did it take?" Me and my cousin literally walked 1 block around in every single 3-family house. In every single house, if there were 3 families in it, there were 3 newspapers. If there were 4 families, there were 4. Yeah. Every single person got one. It's how we got our news. I think that's the problem with today's world is we get information that's not vetted, that's not, professionally, you would have went out, and it would have been a humiliation if you wrote a story about me, and then 2 days later we found out that none of it was true.
Right.
That would have been job ending, career ending for you, right?
Right.
If you write and now the National Enquirer took over the news in America.
Well,
pretty much
anyone with a website can call themselves a journalist now and report literally whatever they want.
Yeah.
And people have lost the ability to discern legitimate from illegitimate.
Yeah. They just don't want to. I think sometimes.
I think
a lot of them go
into
defense of they want to defend their position before they find out. I literally cut and paste anything that someone says, and it gets fact checked. I mean, that is the one wonderful thing about the young kids, because they see these. It's a lot of us that are buying the $5,000 car that's really worth $20,000, and we're just going to mail some gift certificates to Las Vegas. We get caught in those things.
Right.
The younger kids are coming up and understanding computers. They're understanding how AI works. There's my other hope for these young kids coming up. But I got off track again because we're not talking about this book.
Give it to me, and then we won't lose track.
We won't. What made you want to write the book? I know your parents wrote books.
Yes.
And you just got this. This is your first book?
This is my first novel, yes. So I call it, as I told you earlier, I call it a menopause romance.
Menopause romance.
It is the story of a 55-year-old woman who was ravaged by menopause mentally, emotionally, physically. She has given up on life, and she retreats to her family's beach house on Cape Cod in the winter because it's super easy to be by yourself on Cape Cod in the winter. One of her best friends owns a restaurant. They have a happy hour in the winter, and her friend says to her, just come and have a drink and just be out in the world. Yep. And she meets a bartender named Jay, who is 34 years old. And he's very cute, and he surfs, and he makes an excellent blood orange margarita.
I'm thirsty now.
And they have a relationship. This is a romance novel.
Yeah.
So they have a relationship. And I wrote it last year, and I decided to write it because I was reading a lot of romance novels. And as a writer, I became really interested in the structure of a romance novel because they're all the same.
Yep.
They meet, there's a relationship, there's a crisis, there's a happy ending. And I thought, I could probably do that. I'm going to try.
Yep.
So I wanted a female main character I could relate to.
Yep.
A miserable postmenopausal woman. That's me.
Nice.
And then I love the age gap trope, so I wanted a much younger man for some drama. There's a lot of drama. People have told me it's very funny.
I love funny.
So so there it is. It's happy hour.
Happy hour. But so, I mean, it's obviously all fiction. Pretty much, you kind of pulled some of it. Well, no, not some of the.
Well,
some of it's you. Maybe,
yeah. I mean,
the
menopause stuff in the book is definitely my lived experience.
Yeah.
It's a novel. It's fiction. People keep saying to me, "Oh, I'm trying to figure out who everyone is."
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like,
but that's what everybody wants to do.
Stop doing that because they're all
just
made
enjoy
up.
It.
Yeah,
like,
they're just. It's
enjoy
fiction.
Yeah.
It's set on Cape Cod, but there's a big Stonington, Watch Hill, westerly influence in the locations. The restaurant in the book is called Dockside. It is 100% inspired by Breakwater in Stonington.
Okay.
If you read the book, I said to Mari Kodama, who runs Breakwater, I said that the restaurant might sound familiar to you when you read it, and I mean it's completely inspired by Breakwater. So there's some stuff like that, but it's fiction.
Yeah. So what I mean, so you, after writing your first novel, you obviously get some feedback. What's the feel from you? I mean, it's an accomplishment. It's a first time thing.
Oh,
for
I'm
you.
super proud of it. I did not expect. I have to say, I don't know what I expected because it didn't seem real to me. I wrote it. It was mine, and then I published it, and now it's not mine anymore. Now it belongs to everybody.
Yeah.
And I guess I sort of didn't think that part through. So all of the positive response that I've gotten has been amazing, so humbling. And the support from my friends. I do a lot of wine and cheese parties in people's houses where I come. They invite their friends. I read from the book. We have a few glasses of wine. Everybody talks about their menopause.
Cool.
It's a big sort of bonding experience. I've met a zillion women. The book came out in April, and I have just been going around to these parties. And
my wife can relate to this book. I'm sure she hasn't read it, and we haven't read it yet. But I'm telling you right now, it's not an easy path.
Oh no!
I'm
no.
glad that you can smile and joke about it. But
now I can.
The whole hot flash thing, I think, was like almost the
2 rounds of therapy and a estrogen patch, and I'm able to laugh about it now. But
there you go. It sounds simple.
Oh sure.
Yeah, nothing.
Sure.
So we have an event coming up because
we do.
My wife and I are gonna we are gonna
it.
join you. But you've been doing a few events, some book signings.
So I do, yes. So in addition to the private parties, I've been doing bookstore events, library events. It's super fun. I'll go anywhere. So I belong to the Southeastern Connecticut Women's Network, which is an amazing group of women. And on September 26th, I am having a Network at Night event at the Golden Owl Bookstore, which is at 19 Golden Street in New London. And it's a $10 ticket, and a portion of every ticket that we sell to the event is going to be donated to Community Speaks Out.
And we thank you for that. We really do. Tammy and I will be attending that. I'm excited to see how this all goes. I'm also in debt to you for a few things because when we reached out, we knew that you had written for the day, and I think when we were trying to talk about how we're going to get our message for Community Speaks Out, we thought of you. Like, here's somebody that was in the paper and understands it, and you said, pretty much make your own message. That's kind of what you did, and we've done it here at Community Speaks Out.
You have.
We created our own little podcast. We're taking content, and we're the ones supplying it, and we don't let people comment on it because you can like it or not like it, but you're not going to be able to comment on it.
Right.
Which is opposite what happens in the paper.
Right.
And that's what but this is like, you are putting yourself out there. You don't think about it, but when you write a book, it's like almost like running for office. All of a sudden you're like, Jay, you're a great person, and all of a sudden there's 50% of the people who don't think you're so great, and you're going to hear it.
Yeah, all of a sudden you're like, whoa, here I am.
Yeah.
But I am so appreciative of you and Tammy because way back when I was organizing the March for Our Lives rally in Stonington, I didn't know you guys, you didn't know me. I got your phone number. I cold called you and asked you if you and Tammy would come and speak at the March for Our Lives rally, and you immediately said what day and what time.
Yep.
And you came, and you provided an important piece of the gun violence story to that rally. There were 800 people at that rally.
There were. And
including a ton of high school kids and a ton of middle school aged kids and a lot of parents. And you guys provided the human component to the gun violence story, which is the most important part.
Yeah.
And we've been friends ever since.
We have.
But I am so grateful for you and Tammy's ability and courage to speak about addiction and about gun violence and about all those things.
And it's time.
Are we done?
We're done. But it's not our last time. Born Political. I'm cutting it off right now. Thank you for being on the show. We'll see you guys next week. Let's see. Look it up. Google it. I'll see you at the next event. I'm ready.
September 26th.
September 26th. Thank you.